Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janabalabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janabalabha Girivardhari. Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Go Premanandi, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai, Shri Shri Panchatattva ki jai, Shri Shri Prahlad Sringadev ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Madhav Mohan ki jai, Harinama Sankirtan ki, Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Glories to Sri Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Sri Mate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Devi, Gauravani Pracharine, Nevasesha Sanyavari, Pastichade Shatane. Jai Prabhupada.
Sunil Swami ki.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Surprised this morning to have the illustrious association of two of the greatest, let's say, instruments of Srila Prabhupada's mercy in this part of the world, for sure, worldwide also, are giving us their association this morning. We'd like to thank Briyat Banu Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
I thank you.
Hare Krishna. I don't think we really ever knew each other, or maybe we saw each other.
Heart.
On the heart. You've got a very big heart. I can feel that. That's for sure.
The heart is meeting.
That's the real source. That's the real, you could say, meeting place. And we would know, because we don't want to, exaggerate, but we would hear the book scores regularly, and as those who know, Banu Prabhu's name was high up on the list of devotees taking the advantage of Prabhupada's mercy in the form of being an instrument to distribute his books in large quantities. Prabhupada said his mercy is always, sometimes we say, Prabhupada, please give me your mercy. Prabhupada said, my mercy is there, you just have to take it. It's there already, you just have to take it. So this is one of the primary ways we know, we don't have to say, it's a fact of receiving that mercy deeper than what it looks like on the outside. It's something that goes a long way, and even if we sometimes drift away from the particular activity or the particular practice to some extent, the mercy doesn't. The mercy remains forever, indelibly in the heart of Krishna, Radha and Krishna, to bless those devotees, especially who endeavor in their lives to assist their dear most representative to spread the mission of Krishna consciousness. And of course, I don't think that my glasses on. Harinamananda Prabhu.
You had to go to. He's coming.
He's had to do the needful. Do the needful. So that's something which we may vary as we grow through our life. The needfuls may change a little bit, and nature's calls and various things become prominent. But Harinamananda Prabhu is probably well known to, I would imagine, most of you here today. He certainly was world famous. Is one sense good. He's not in the room. He might not feel comfortable about that. But he's world famous in ISKCON for many, many, many long years, probably decades, along with Navinanirada Prabhu and others. Prabhu one, but especially those two.
Especially Akila. And
Akila Prabhu was there. He's very. Akila Prabhu ki jai. Jai Prabhu. Haribo. Yeah. We're fortunate also, of course, to have our association of our direct God brothers, maybe some God sisters, I don't know, and devotees who served in such nice ways as these devotees. But Harinamananda Prabhu was many times, I don't know. Now there's new book records, a number of books distributed in a day, but in that era, in the late 70s or 70s and 80s, maybe into the 90s, I don't know the exact timings, but Harinamananda Prabhu and Navinanirada were the world pace setters in distributing books, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, according to the newsletter they were. And now we have, of course, times have moved in different ways, and book distribution is still going on in huge amounts of books distributed in India. Now, when we look back, it was kind of interesting because not so many books were being distributed in India in our time. Mostly they were in Europe and America, and some in Australia, a bit here and there, South America also. But mostly Europe and America were the main seats of book distribution. That book distribution is still going on in different ways also, not just literally book distribution, but on other forms the knowledge is being distributed, which we didn't have in those days. But we see now in India, phenomenal book distribution is going on. And those who are aware of the fact, I just heard that just one, for instance, there's one devotee, in fact he used to be a member of the Ritvik group, but he's not now, he's part of what we call normal ISKCON, or I think it says normal ISKCON, but what we kind of, you know what I mean. So he has started an online program, like many have, and somehow or another he's hit the nail on the head, as we say in England. He's touched the right buttons, and there are now, it's a Bhagavad Gita course for students. He's got 800,000 university students on his course in India, in South India, including now, then he doesn't just give a course, he guides them to come up in devotional service. And not to speak of the students, he's got 200 university professors chanting 16 rounds in India. Isn't that amazing? Now, that's what's going on, you know. It's like, who knows what the future is? You know, it's the order of Lord Chaitanya. We heard yesterday, you know, the importance of, you know, pleasing the spiritual master by assisting him in whatever way we can, but particularly by preaching. And, you know, imagine how pleasing this is. The Lord Chaitanya's order, everyone, Bharata Bhumati Hulya Manushya Jamajara Jamasataka Kara Para Upakara, everyone born, especially those born of Indian, you know, birth, you have to be careful we don't become proud, because that can sometimes be seen as a higher birth. But nonetheless, we see thousands of devotees now in India going out on book distribution, preaching up a storm. And they're coming out of India sometimes, and they're preaching online, and they're preaching here and there. Will this be the future? Who knows? You know, it's the order of Lord Chaitanya. They should go all over the world and preach Krishna consciousness, which is beginning, I hope, is beginning to happen. Prabhupada, the Lone Ranger, empowered pure devotee, Lone Ranger came out of India. One, Prabhupada said, I'm just one, of course, we know more than that. We understand more than that. But one person, one, he would sometimes say, one Indian. What to speak of thousands. How this movement can change the world. We're seeing the influence of Indians in the world becoming quite prominent. The Prime Minister of England is the modern day terminology, Hindu. Leaders of many of the parliamentary ministers and leaders are also Hindu. And you know, in America also Hindus are there in various in big positions of responsibility. So the world's changing in that sense. So let's see what Lord Chaitanya's plan is, but we just do our best. And the effect of these wonderful devotees, Keela, you have to do the needful? Oh, okay. Hare Krishna. We just had the glorious opportunity to remember your inspiration to all of us, and we were eternally indebted, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you, Harinamananda Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you. We're all trying to be das, 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 and udas, that's for sure. That's one of the things we realize. Hopefully it's one of the things we realize as we get, when our bodies become a little more ancient, and we realize, as Prabhupada says, you know, what have you got to be proud of when your body is dead? You know, you've got nothing left. You know, it's dying. It's like old. And, you know. Still, we hang on sometimes to those little, you know, hopes of whatever it is, of becoming famous or something. The enjoyer. But anyway, Srila Prabhupada's mercy that we can have this opportunity. So this book distribution is still going on. Now we have, I don't know if any of you know Mahotsaha Prabhu. You may have heard his name. Have you heard the name?
Yes. Yep.
Mahotsaha, you're in touch with the world of book distribution. You must have heard his name. He's a modern day phenomena. He goes, I've been with him on Sankirtan on a few occasions in New York, I think just New York. And now he's in Atlanta. Atlanta was also one of the big book distribution havens during the 70s and early 80s. There's many devotees there distributing books. Biggest airport in those days, maybe still is in the world, and they used to go to the airport and distribute masses of books. There's one devotee in America now, his name is Brigupati. Some of you may have heard of Brigu. We heard about the Brigu dynasty yesterday, I think. Yeah, we heard about the Brigu dynasty yesterday. I think so, yesterday's class, I can't remember. somewhere just recently. And his name is Brigupati. And Prabhu is an early disciple. He joined in 73, and I think he joined in LA. And even when I was with him in New Zealand, he was the TP of Auckland. He was going out every day on book distribution. He was TP. Now, shortly after that, they asked me to be the TP because he wasn't quite able to put the time in to be in TP, you know. He was too addicted to book distribution. And to this very day, now he's just completed his 50th year of book distribution, just this year. Still going out almost 5 days a week on book distribution, can you imagine? And it's not going out for 1 hour, maybe a little bit longer than that. I don't know how many hours he does now. When you get older, you can usually, in a little time, may not have so much hours, but more quality time. But he's very often one of the top book distributors, even today in the book, at least in America, that's for sure. And active Prabhupada book distributor, he's usually the most active in book distribution today. Phenomenal example, and his sadhana is impeccable, not like me. I have to, I don't know if I apologize or what, I'm kind of beyond apology maybe. Information that, you know, I did have a great desire to come for Mangalarti today, but I was, you know, what it's like doing the needful. I was up till almost midnight on that conference call last night, and then 3 or 4 hours after that, doing the needful. And so we took rest at 4 o'clock this morning, so I do apologize for not being, I could have stayed up another hour, but I was getting a bit too tired. We had to take some kind of rest of some kind. So apologies for not being up. I really was looking forward to Mangal Arti in New Simhachalam. You know, the daily greeting, we missed that because I had to do the needful at that time this morning. And you know, that was a very impressive, is not the word, dynamic, very out of this world yesterday, and I'm sure it was the same today. The kirtan also was just saturated with pure heartfelt enthusiasm, which is the essence. I mean, maybe in the 70s our kirtans weren't so sophisticated, if that's the right word, as we may see today. You have to many times you have to play the harmonium, or you have to sing a particular tune, or, you know, do things in such and such a way. It's like, and otherwise you feel like you're out of date. But when you see it, simply the heart, absorbing our heart in the service of the holy name, in the service of Lord Chaitanya's mission, that's all. So thank you so much for allowing us to come here, and thank especially the senior devotees who've, you know, inspired all of this and brought this opportunity to all of us. Without them, we wouldn't be here. The service that they've rendered in the past and the present is phenomenal, especially in this day and age. It's just unbelievable. We couldn't believe. I'm sure Harinamananda Prabhu, when you started first book distribution, I don't know when that was, but my first book distribution was in 1971. I came as a guest, and I don't know why, but I just wanted to take the Back to Godhead and try to distribute it, maybe out of pride, I don't know. I was a hippie, and I had hair down to my waist, and I just wanted to do it, or I thought I did. So I tried. And I was the top BTG distributor on my first afternoon out, along with a Harinam. And I distributed a grand total of 3 Back to Godheads for a grand collection of 30p, if you know what that is. That's about 35 cents in euros now. It's a bit more value in those days. They were selling them at 10p each. I mean, they didn't know what to do with them, you know. The devotees we had no clue what to do. We would stand there like newspaper agents, you know. They see, you know, Daily Times. I don't know what the newspaper in Germany is, you know. Huh? What was that? Spitzberger? No. Filzer? I don't know, whatever it's called. In England, you know, we have Daily Mirror, get your Daily Mirrors here. We would stand there, Back to Godhead, get your Back to Godheads here. And of course, not many people stopped, what to speak of, take the magazine. It was like almost, it was a miracle if anyone, we consider that. I remember the first day I went on hard book distribution. I just shaved up. The next morning they sent me out on Krishna book distribution. They just arrived in London, the Krishna book. And they sent me out with another devotee. We went to a place called Earl's Court. Now, no one had done any of these books at this point of time, at least at that time. They'd done some before with a previous shipment, but not this one. And so we went to a suburb, a part of London called Earl's Court. And no one had a clue what to say or do. So I had some clue. You would knock on a door and say, Hare Krishna, this is a Krishna book. This is a book about God. Would you like something like that? Would you like one? You know, I didn't know what to expect. I was quite nervous. The first door I knocked on, and the most weird guy, no, it wasn't really the most weird guy, it was a hippie, but for someone who was non-hippie, I mean, he was dressed in barely underpants. He had next to nothing on, you know, a big fat gentleman. And I don't know, I just said my line, and he immediately took the book, and he said, how much? I said, give what you can, and he gave me a £5. That was like a phenomenal amount of money in those days, in one sense. I thought, this is so easy, I can't believe it. Unbelievable. I thought this was how it was. I thought, but that was the only book the whole week which I distributed. And believe me, hardly any other book. We would go all day, 4 of us, and not one devotee would do a single book most days. Not one. That's what it's like. We continued. It wasn't like, oh, this is a waste of time. Of course, later things changed. One devotee came, I think his name was Bidan Chandra, was he from Germany or Holland? I can't remember. When he came, suddenly, he opened her eyes, he went on the street and distributed 10 Krishna books. Oh! We were all shocked. Many devotees say, maybe he's a Shakti-Avesha avatar. Empowered incarnation of Godhead. How could anyone sell 10 Krishna books on the street? It was unbelievable. That created a bit of a revolution in our mindset, you know. Anyway, history has its ways, and, you know, for many devotees now, you know, it's nothing unusual. Even in France now, I don't know, did you ever go on book distribution in France?
No, France.
Not France.
Germany.
Germany mainly, and Switzerland, of course. And but, you know, France in the heyday, that's the 70s and early 80s, they were just doing phenomenal amounts. Now there's ongoing arguments about the world record. A book distribution in those days, 1,000 big books in a day. I mean, Ram Vijay did over 1,000 big books in one day in the parking lots in France. So some say that's the highest, some say you're the highest, some say this and that, different, whatever it is. What height are we? You know, we're just trying to serve the high. But anyway, whatever it was, they were doing lots of books in France in those days. And then it just basically went down to near zero, not far off zero. For many decades, in fact, one or two devotees doing their little bit. And by Krishna's mercy, Prabhupada's mercy, in the last 4 or 5 years, it picked up a little bit. And although it's tiny compared to, you know, you could say the past or what some are doing now, but we have some devotees now in France trying to distribute books. And on occasions, they do 100 Gitas in a day. On rare occasions. In fact, one of the oldest book distributors in the 70s, his name was Aristanasana, Prabhupada's disciple, Prabhu, and he's going out on books again. And he regularly does 40, 50 Gitas in a day. He doesn't go out long, he's 70 years old or something. And but he's going out again after a long time, after like 30 years or more. This is amazing, and in our marathons we have sometimes 5, 6 Prabhupada disciples distributing books during the marathon. And we had in fact, New Mayapur was the individual temple, was the highest in Europe last marathon, Christmas marathon. Not including England, they're not part of Europe anymore, we don't count them. They drifted off into the Atlantic somewhere there, I don't know. Now they're on their way to India, the Prime Minister's Indian. He's gradually taking the country towards India, I think. Or maybe bringing India to England, I don't know which way around. But anyway, aside from that, something's going on. And I'm sure here in Germany also, I know in Germany, many of you are younger devotees are also going out on book distribution for the pleasure of, ultimately, the Radha and Krishna, the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. The secret of spiritual life is to please the self-realized souls. And this is certainly the greatest way in many cases we hear, to please the self-realized soul. To spread, Lord Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, there's no one more dear to me than he who spreads this message, Bhagavad Gita, to the devotees. But Prabhupada explains that ultimately everyone's a devotee, just covered over. So, you know, you just don't know it. So preach in a way to gradually help them to realize that actually they're a devotee, ultimately a devotee. So spreading this mission is the greatest welfare work that we all know. Even the gopis have explained, Tavakatamritam taptajivanam kavivi iditam kalmashapam shravanamangalam srimanatam bhuvi granantiye bhuritichanaha. Those who preach or spread this message of Godhead are the greatest welfare workers. The greatest. They're giving the greatest, most valuable thing that anyone could ever give. And we shouldn't feel bad in the sense, maybe you can feel, I wish I could, but don't feel bad if you're not doing it. Everyone can be a part of assisting in this missionary activity. The Vijari is in a very amazing service, inspiring us all, evoking the mercy of Lord Nrsimhadev, etc., etc., showing a wonderful example to inspire and attract us all. The cooks, an army marches on its, what, feet or what? On its belly. On its belly. So what would we do? Let's face it, if there was no prasadam, I mentioned that I think yesterday, what would we do? We couldn't do anything practically. We have to have, and if the prasadam is not attractive, then, you know, we're not pure devotees, we're not Gorky Shordas Babaji, who can eat, you know, mud from the Ganga and, you know, think he's having a feast. You know, if you turn up for breakfast, Prabhu, mud for breakfast. And if you really can't quite handle that, there's some cow dung on the side. What would we'd be out of here in no time. Forget this place. So the army marched on the stomach, so the cooks, where's our illustrious cook? Where's he gone? He was here earlier. I saw him with his apron. Is he here now? Back in the kitchen. Back in the kitchen. Kitchen religion, huh? Krishna consciousness, kitchen religion. Amazing. Prasadam. What will we do without prasadam? Secret weapons. Yeah, this is really special. Nowhere else on the planet do you get this chance except for the Hare Krishna to get such mercy in the form of delicious prasadam. Even yesterday I saw the cook, Gujarati lady, cooked beautiful halava. For the deities, of course, but for the devotees also. And beautiful sweet rice. And beautiful, someone cooked beautiful Mangalarti sweets. And even at our, you know, let's say mature age, it's still, you can't resist it, you know. Better go down with a full belly and so whatever. Wonderful serviced farms. The follow-up, Prabhupada's desire. I remember I was driving Srila Prabhupada in 1977 from Heathrow Airport to the Manor. And at that time, we were all over the world, including Germany, France, England, West Coast, everywhere. We were on a constant book marathon, practically. I'm sure you were part of all that, aware of that, those who were around at that time. That was the mood. To please Prabhupada, more books, and Prabhupada was coming to London on his trip out of India, his last trip to the Western world. We were on fire in London. At that time I happened to be the Sankirtan coordinator, so we were all on fire about book distribution. And it was like, I thought that, you know, I didn't know if Prabhupada would say anything, but I thought if he said anything, he'd ask about book distribution, or at least about bhakti making. We had Danivir, later Goswami in London at that time. And he started the Bhakta program. And we were Bhaktas and Bhaktins were joining, like, you know, they just like flowing in. Minimum 4 to 8 new devotees every month were joining. And after 3 months, they would be on the book. We had about 80 full-time book distributors out there. And you know, the Bhakta program was just churning them into the, like this, and some of them would go to other services, but primarily to book distribution. It was like the place was on fire with Sankirtan, with the please Prabhupada and preaching. And I'm sure everywhere else was in a similar mood. And when Prabhupada came, he didn't say a word about book distribution in the car. He did speak. He spoke to Tamal, and Tamal, Krishna was with him, then spoke to me, because Prabhupada was speaking very quietly. His body was, you know, almost uninhabitable. And he would speak a little quietly, and then Tamal would say what Prabhupada was saying and expect me to answer it. And it was so embarrassing. The whole journey, the only thing Prabhupada talked about was cow protection. That's all he talked about. It was the last thing on our list at Bhaktivedanta Manor. The last thing. All I know, there was some cows in the field. I didn't know anything else. I didn't even know who was looking after them. I couldn't answer any of the questions. I tried to I just don't know. I didn't know what to say. I was embarrassed, completely embarrassed. So cow protection, farming was, Prabhupada said when he was in London, he was on his way. He did speak little darshan. He said he was on his way to Gitanargi to show us how to set up this project. Very important part of Prabhupada's mission. He could see the bigger picture. No one could have envisioned book distribution of the sort that developed when Prabhupada was alone, even in the early days of ISKCON. What are we going to do with these books? That was the same. The book room's full of books. What are we going to do with them? No idea. You know, so farming. Prabhupada could see, it's a futuristic, it's a necessity for the future spreading of Krishna consciousness and for the devotee's own spiritual growth. All these things are important. Temples, city preaching, everything. All part of the big picture of bringing us to the point of realizing our constitutional position. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're starting a new chapter. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes in our life we also like to start a new chapter. But not the written chapter, but the practical chapter. Today is chapter 3 of the 4th canto, text 1. Maitreya Uvacha Sada Vidvishator Evang Kalo Vai Driyamanayoho Jamatuhu Shvashurasyapi Samahan Atichakrame Maitreya Uvacha Sadavid Vitsatorevang Kalovai Driyamanayoho Jamatuk Shvashurasyapi Sumahanati Chakrame Maitreya Uvacha Sadavid Vitsatorevang Kalovai Driyamanayoho Jamatuk Svashurasyapi Sumahan Atichakrame Maitreya Uvacha Sadavid Vitsatorevang Kalo Vaidriyamanayoho Jamatuk Svashurasyapi Sumahanati Chakrame.
Maitreya Vacha Sadavit Vishnatorevam Kalo Vaidriyamanayo Jamatu Shvasurasyapi.
Could you go to the car and bring 2 or 3 copies of the animals book? There's a box in the car.
Maitreya Vacha
Maitreya Vacha
Sadavidvatsatorevam Kalo Vaidriyamanayoho
Hanayoho
Kamatu Shvasurasyapi Sumahanati Chakrame.
Sumahanati Chakrame. Ladies. Maitreya Vacha Adhyamanayoho Yamatasyapi Samahanti Chakrame. Maitreya Vacha Kalo Vaidriyamanayoho Jamatok Svashurasyapi Maitreya Vacha. Maitreya said, Sada, constantly. Maybe someone can take this away. Vid satoho. Thank you, Paul. Where am I? The tension. Anyone feeling tension? Anyone feeling attention? That's the tension we want, huh? Attention. Not the other type, the tension. Sometimes we feel that. Kalaha means time. Vai, I missed the word out there, didn't I? Evam, in this matter. In Kala. Vai, certainly. Driya manayoho, continued to bear. That means held on to, didn't give up. You know? Interesting. Jamatuhu, of the son-in-law. Is this your grandson?
Yeah.
Wow. Hare Krishna. Lucky boy. What's his name?
Chaitanya Ballabha.
Chaitanya Ballabha. Haribo. Where's the lucky mum and daddy? Are they here? Pardon? You're the lucky daddy?
Yes.
Wow. Lucky son. Son or son-in-law? Are you the son or the son-in-law?
Son.
You're the direct son. Okay. You have a daughter-in-law. So in this case, it's the son-in-law. Spashurasya. Of the father-in-law. Api. Even. Sumahan. A very great. Atichakrame. Past. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. It's interesting, in most of the cantos there is a summary, but in the 4th canto, maybe the 3rd also, I can't remember, but a couple of cantos there's no summary. They start at a certain point of time. Maitreya continued, in this manner, the tension between the father-in-law and the son-in-law, Daksha and Lord Shiva, continued for a considerably long time. Purport. And you see that sometimes, our whole life sometimes, doesn't it? You have an issue with somebody. And it's not, it may be direct, but it's indicative of something deeper inside. Not necessarily that particular person. These situations of, say, tension are sometimes there to try to help remind us we have a little homework to do. There's something in our heart which is at the root of it. We'll get to that in a minute. The previous chapter has already explained that Vidura questioned the sage Maitreya as to the cause of the misunderstanding between Lord Shiva and Daksha. Another question is why the strife between Daksha and his son-in-law caused Sati to destroy her body. The chief reason for Sati's giving up, interesting, it's with a sh, it's not a sh, it's with Shati. Sati's giving up her body was that her father, Daksha, began another sacrificial performance to which Lord Shiva was not invited at all. Didn't invite him. Now imagine how you feel, you know, especially if you're a significant person in the community and somebody's having a little birthday party and they don't invite you. It's not an ordinary birthday. That person happens to be related to you. And your wife happens to be their daughter. And they don't invite you. They invite everybody else except for you. You know, we experienced that. When somebody sends out a Christmas card and they forget you and everyone else has got the card, it creates a whole turmoil in the family practically. Why you didn't send me a Christmas card, you send everyone else one. People get upset. So much ego. I forgot. I know you don't like me. The chief reason, yes. Generally, when any sacrifice is performed, although each and every sacrifice is intended to pacify the Supreme Personality of Godhead or satisfy him, Vishnu, all the demigods, especially Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, and the other principal demigods such as Indra and Chandra are invited and they take part. Just like if you have a festival here, you try to think, everybody, who should we invite? We send out invitations, all the devotees, everyone we can think of, especially the elder devotees. Make sure they get their invitations. You know, we make mistakes. But in this case, it was a purposeful omission. Purposefully, he did not even invite Lord Shiva. How can you have a yajna without Lord Shiva's presence? He's a Dikpal. He's the protector of the Dham. He's the greatest of the demigods. He's not only that, but he's a great Vaishnav. Vaishnavanam Tatar Shambhu is known as the greatest of the Vaishnavas also. Not invited? What an insult. What an insult. Lord Brahma, especially Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva and the other principal demigods such as Indra and Chandra are invited and they take part. It is said that unless all the demigods are present, no sacrifice is complete. But in the tension between the father, Daksha was the chief progenitor employed by Lord Brahma. That means one to populate the universe, to create, progeny, offspring. He was practically the chief in the whole universe. He was the head for this purpose. He was a very, very learned person also. And he was a son of Brahma, direct son. Big position. Aibo Chaitanya. So he had a high position. and the key line, or key words. He had a high position and was also very proud. Which in a sense is the key here of this whatever. Extended description of what's going on in this relationship between the father-in-law and the son-in-law is based upon pride. Daksha's pride. And we often hear in English, pride before a fall. And Daksha certainly did have a fall. It took a little while. Sometimes if you're not lucky, the fall takes a little while. And, Krishna may give, if you're lucky, it can happen quickly. Quickly you get your lessons. Sometimes it takes a while. Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, different personalities. We see that their fall took some time. Krishna has his different arrangements, different plans, different reasons for different effects. But sooner or later, the fall will take place, as long as the pride is there. It's already a fallen condition, it just perhaps not recognized by others. So what is this pride? Okay, we have a very popular movement in the world today called the Pride movement. They have Gay Pride Day. We're all conditioned, there's no disqualification, no matter what our condition is. But we shouldn't be proud of it. This is the point. It's almost like we want to advertise it. So pride is like that. We want to advertise ourselves, make ourselves look big in the eyes of others, basically speaking. And we're very happy when we're glorified. We're very happy when, we're recognized. We like to see our picture there. We like to see others talking about us. Have you ever noticed that when someone talks about us? Now, when someone talks about Krishna, maybe not so much interest is there. Sometimes we fall asleep. I've heard that before. I don't want to hear that again. Or the process of devotion. So, oh God, here we go again, How many times do I have to hear the ABCs, etc.? And, our interest is not there. But if someone starts talking, and I don't know many of the younger devotees' names, so I don't want to pinpoint them. Just say your name is Krishna Das. I don't know if anyone has that name here. We had a Krishna Das in the very early days here in Germany. Let's just say your name is Krishna Das, and I'm around the corner, and I don't know you around the corner, and I'm talking to some... have you heard about Krishna Das? Did you hear what he did? Now, would you be interested to hear? Would you be interested? Most likely yes, isn't it? What are they saying about me? I won't go there. I want to know what they really think about me. And your ears are like prick open. You don't fall asleep for sure. You're very attentive to what they're saying, Of course, depending on what they're saying, your reaction will be different. This self-centered, spontaneous, in one sense, desire, it extends, even to our country, our group, anything which we identify with. We have an interest there to hear about it. And, it's, but to speak of ourselves, there's various kinds of pride. And it's a knot. It's a knot. We see, what's that famous verse? Yasyatma buddhi kunapetvitada ge svadi kalatradishu boma ejadi yatitta buddhi shilalena kahi chitjanesha vigesa eva gokaraha. A famous verse Prabhupada would quote. So eva gokara, that line we probably know the meaning. What does it mean? Pardon? Like a cow or an ass. In other words, the mentality of a cow and an ass describes those who identify themselves with this material body, which is just a bundle of material things, mucus, bile, air, and so on, as the self, which most people do. And those who think that these are mine, these family members, not putting anyone down, by the way, but those who identify, these are my family members, this is mine, etc., who think that their place of birth is worshipable. Sometimes this spirit is strong, very strong, and who go to holy places, have pilgrimage, just to take a bath or look at the sights, to enjoy of some sort or another, and don't take advantage of the spiritually advanced souls or the opportunity to hear from them, is no better than a cow or an ass. They also go to the holy places. They also think they're the body. They also think this is my offspring. They're also attached. You look at a dog, you know, how territorial dogs are, huh? This is my space. Get out of here. They fight like hell to establish their rights in their space. You know, this is my home. This is my hole. This is my nest. We identify like this false ego. So Daksha was born, as we've just heard, in a high birth. Now, if I don't know if you have the Bhagavatam here, but do we have first canto here? English. Can someone bring? It'll be chapter 8, Prayers of Queen Kunti. First canto, chapter 8. Let's just see a little bit of a, let's say, pure perspective on this subject matter. Pride. And also, what are we going to do about it? I mean, probably, some of us are still, we may not recognize it, we're probably still governed a little bit by pride. Text number 26, it should be. A little governed by pride. We may not even be aware of it. We're so identifying with our condition that we think that's perfectly normal. Pride based on the false identity, false ego is very strong. Wanting to be recognized, liking to advertise ourselves. We may do that in devotional service. And Krishna gives us tests. I remember when we were doing a Bhakti Shastri course, one of the early days, about 1989 or something, I can't remember, really in the beginning course. And I met Danodar, then he was organizing the course down at Swami. And, you know, reading out the names, and, you know, such and such grade, blah, 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 someone came first, and then someone up the list, you know, to the first. And then the result of being first, or a devotee being first, he said, what did it feel like? It feels so humiliating. In the presence of devotees, this can be actually, you feel so ashamed of thinking, I want to be, you know, recognized. In the material world, it's like the life and soul of people to be recognized, you know, is the goal of their life practically. But for a devotee, and we have beautiful examples, and they're real examples, they're not just artificial displays, but devotees like Madhavendra Puri, look at his example. Or you could see a simpler example, Vasudev Vipra, not Vasudev Datta also, but particularly Vasudev Vipra, who was a leper. He was a leper. What did he have to be proud of? He was a leper. Nobody would go near him. He was untouchable practically. And by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya in his heart of hearts. And when Lord Chaitanya, he blessed him, he gave him his mercy. He came there and he cured him of his leprosy also. Vasudev Vipra became from a Brahminical stock. But he had leprosy, so there was no question of pride. He was a leper. But Lord Chaitanya made him into gave him a beautiful form. So he was afraid. What do I do? I may become proud now. I've received this amazing mercy, and, you know, you could say he had a good birth, and he was very handsome. Especially people who are very handsome, who possess, to a large degree, more than others, the opulences of Krishna. It's very difficult not to be proud. You're very famous because of your ability given by Krishna. To remember that everything we have is really Krishna's energy. It's not mine. What have I got to be proud of? A beautiful girl, Miss World. How could she not be proud? It's very difficult. Born in a high family like Daksha, very difficult not to be proud. Indian people often have this problem. They're born in a high Brahmin family and there's little pride is there. Or in the West, maybe a royal family, an aristocratic family, or a very learned family. We may be very learned, it's difficult not to be proud. or nowadays money, especially if you're very opulent. That's very difficult not to be proud. All these things, very strong, physically strong. Very renounced can also, is not such perhaps so common, I don't think, in the world around us, but amongst spiritualists it can be a very big obstacle. We're proud of Prabhu. I remember one time there was this time when it was the thing to do to stay up all night on Ekadashi and not eat anything, not even drink a drop of water, and chant, supposedly, a lot of rounds. And I saw with my own eyes, in morning time, Prabhu, what vrata did you perform yesterday? How many rounds did you chant? Did you do nirjal? Oh, I tried. Never mind. Never mind. Keep trying. Ooh, well done. Well done. You did nirjal. And it's like, it was like a status symbol amongst some devotees. Very dangerous. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, and this is interesting, I take it in different ways. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was quite, I guess everyone's heard of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Wonderful preacher of Krishna consciousness movement. And I had the privilege of traveling on the library program for some time in England. Not for long, he didn't stay there long. But I was in his party whilst he was there. And he was so, what we would call austere. I'd never seen anyone, and it seemed to me to be genuine. It wasn't like, I didn't feel any element of pride in his interaction. And I saw him very willingly take on any manual service whenever the need was there. I didn't see that pride was coming out, but he must have felt something. He was only eating a few raw vegetables in a day and a little bit sometimes of some cheese or something. And he'd get up like 2 hours before all of us, or before our little party. Kalakanta was with us as well. There were four of us, I can't remember, 3 or 4 of us. And he would chant 32 rounds in the morning before going out, with his suit on, going office to office and trying to sell Prabhupada's books to these dull professors, etc. And he would be considered to be extremely austere by even ISKCON standards. And in his last days on the planet, one of his disciples who was with him told me, he was kind of open, very open. Festivals, bring the pizza, the ice cream. He wasn't supposed to eat anything, but he was having almost like parties with the devotees, He couldn't really do, but he was encouraging it. And this particular devotee asked him actually, he said, Maharaj, we hear about, because they were disciples, and we hear about when you were a young devotee, how austere you were. How austere you were. And he said, they were not good days. They were good in one sense, very good. Prabhupada patted him on the head and apparently cried seeing his service. So what was bad about it? He said, in those days, I was proud of my austerity. Proud. Even that can be a cause of, let's say, danger. Of course, if we recognize it, what do we do if we recognize it? And hopefully we do recognize it. What do we do? So a very beautiful example is there in the case of Lord Brahma and in the case of Vasudeva Vipra. Lord Chaitanya didn't just give him a beautiful form, curing his leprosy, establishing him in what you could say a prestigious position, and a very position that people say, my God, who are you to get this mercy? He'd become very famous, you could say. So Lord Chaitanya gave him a simple instruction to protect him from becoming proud. Do you know what he gave him? What instruction?
Always chant.
Yeah. Always chant. Constantly chant the holy name. As we heard yesterday, Jiva Goswami and Prabhupada were mentioning how, along with our service, we should chant the holy names in order that we don't get on the platform of the false ego, false identity, etc. So in his case, he just said, chant the holy name constantly. This will protect you from pride. We can be proud of that too, if we're we can be proud of anything. But if we're really taking shelter of the holy name and not just chanting for some mechanical or material reason, inattentively and so on, then the effect may not be there. But if we actually do chant the holy name, then the effect will be there. And in the case of Lord Brahma, now imagine being a Lord Brahma. Now this, we hear, of course, is the cause of their fall down, in a sense that we have a position. Sometimes Prabhupada says when we enter the world like Lord Brahma, the position of a controller, the position of the center of everything, which we all have in the material world to some degree. But let's take the position of Lord Brahma himself. Now imagine being Lord Brahma. How would you feel? I mean, imagine you've got the consciousness for it too, not like in your present situation. I mean, that would be a little too much to expect. Prabhu, we've just got a message from the demigods. They want you to, they're coming to pick you up today. You've been elected as the new Brahma of the universe. Pretty scary, huh? Even being a TP nowadays in ISKCON is like the last thing anyone on the planet wants, practically speaking. What to speak of a GBC? I mean, I bow down in the dust of their feet. I don't know how on earth. It's not the easiest. I mean, it's like, wow, you know, nobody. It's like difficult age we're in, very difficult. But what to speak of Lord Brahma? Because it's on a different dynamic, a different dimension. But imagine he's worshipped basically by everyone in the universe. And he is. He's worthy of worship. He's the creator of the universe. He's the greatest of the demigods. Most important person in one sense, though Shiva's different. But amongst the demigods, he's the most important person. The greatest person in the universe, practically speaking. Imagine how you feel. So it's not surprising he becomes a little bit overwhelmed sometimes by pride or, you know, whatever. Different types of identification, I'm the doer and so on. So when he was, let's say, when the potential, creative potentiality was awoken in him, he became very concerned. And he prayed. He prayed to the Lord. And what was his prayer?
He prayed to the Lord that he might not become influenced by his position.
Yeah, by his position. That I not become proud in the course of the execution of my duty. I not become proud. So this is one thing. We have to be careful. And even if we don't recognize, we should be in this mood of recognition. Ultimately, Krishna speaks so many things in Bhagavad Gita also to help us identifying everything that we think is something to be proud of as being his and not ours. Everything belongs to him. Just like with Bali Maharaj, if there wasn't, and he taught, Prabhupada says, he taught through Bali Maharaj this lesson. He took everything away from Bali Maharaj. So he became proudless. Of course, Bali was actually a hidden devotee in one sense. He wasn't manifesting it, but he was a hidden devotee. But for the sake of others, he put him in that situation and took everything away. So you had nothing left to be proud of. You're finished. Humbled. Said it. Now, if one is actually, of course, even in that situation, even if you're humbled, some persons will just, out of intensive envy and, you know, there's so much, a so fallen situation, they may become so angry that when I get out of here, I'll kill this person. I'll get my own back. Sometimes you hold on to that grudge till grim death. Till death. You know, it's difficult. So we should, if we want to become Krishna conscious, we have to try to recognize this dangerous, most dangerous of all, practically speaking, this pride. And pride and envy, they like two sides of the same coin. They go hand in hand, more or less. So this is a very dangerous situation. So I'm going to read now a little purport of Srila Prabhupada, 26, chapter 1, Canto 1, chapter 8, 26. Excuse me, hard for me to keep my eyes open here. Translation, my Lord, this is Queen Kunti speaking. My Lord, your Lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. That doesn't mean you've been working all day long. Prabhu, I'm exhausted. I must be now eligible to easily approach Krishna. I'm exhausted. There might be an element of truth there, but that's not the real meaning. We'll see what the real meaning is. Only one who is on the path of material progress, one who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. They may approach God, give me more wealth, give me more strength, make me more beautiful, give me a good birth, good education, and so on. That they may do, but that's not sincere. That's with a personal self-motivation, selfish motivation, huh? Separate from the will, not thinking of how to please Krishna, but how to please me. Krishna, you please me. That's not sincere. So they can't really approach Krishna. And usually they don't even approach him anyway. They usually approach the demigods. Prabhupada writes, being materially advanced means taking birth in an aristocratic family, like Daksha, and possessing great wealth, like Daksha, and education, like Daksha, and attractive personal beauty, like Daksha. He had all of those. So imagine how difficult that is. All materialistic men are mad after possessing all of these material opulences, isn't it? I remember one time on Sankirtan, I was in Scotland, and I was working with a devotee there. His name was Balabhadra Prabhu, and he was in charge of the temple there, so I was there for a little while. He wanted me to go out distributing something or another on the street. It wasn't books, something else. And he had this fetish, this addiction for opulent cars. You know, we have Porsche. Is that German? Porsche? Is that an opulent car? Is that considered like a high-range car? Porsche. They have this what's it called in Lamborghini or something in Italy or something. And England we have, you have Mercedes here, and that's quite a good one. And many good cars in Germany, best cars in the world. And in England we have not so many good cars like that, but maybe Jaguar was quite famous. Rolls-Royce is like a different category, but Jaguar was probably, in those days, was probably the most English, souped up car. And he had this whole thing about fancy cars. And all of us were driving, I was driving a Jag SJ6, which is like a rocket off the mark, I had to go on Sankirtan in this car, squeeze the devotees in. It wasn't very comfortable. We squeezed in there, and we're like, you couldn't help it. You were going like a rocket, I was like off the mark at a traffic light before I was at the next one before the other cars had started practically. It was like a rocket car. And it was so, we're going to these blooming towns. They're some of the poorest towns in Scotland. Excuse me, can you give a donation to help the suffering, It was so outrageously embarrassing. Outrageous. It was such an austerity for me. I just felt so uncomfortable. But when I was in that car, there was like this, you look at the next guy's looking at you, and he's in a little kind of mini minor or something, and he's looking at you in this, the state of the latest Jag SJ6, in this poor town. You're sat there, and he's looking at you. We weren't dressed like this. We were dressed in ordinary street clothes. But, it was just hard not to feel, a little proud in there at the wheel. It was one of those things. And anyway, what to do? Now, if you want to know how to please me, you know what to do. I've got one out there. You haven't seen our car, have you? Is it Jag SJ6 we're driving, isn't it? What are we driving?
The white one.
Huh?
The white one.
The white SJ6, is it? And we have a very, very, very expensive Dacia. Was it Dacia Docker? If you've ever heard of that one. Cheapest car in France money can buy. It's great, and I'm proud of it, I'm proud. I'm driving a very humble car. Just look at me. Yes. Even that you can become proud of, isn't it? I'm not eating very much, look at me. I'm very advanced. I get up early, I do this, I do that. Very pride. Whew, it's such a formidable enemy. So we have to take control, take shelter of the controller, who is greater than pride. You know. Take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. Where do we get to? Yes, material civilization. Prabhupada says this desire, mad after these things, is known as advancement of material civilization. But the result is that by possessing all of these material assets, one becomes artificially puffed up. Prabhupada liked this term, huh? Puffed up. Intoxicated by such temporary possessions. Consequently, such materially puffed up persons are incapable of uttering the holy name of the Lord by addressing him feelingly. This is our only problem. We're not really completely freed in one sense of this pride or envy. Consequently, oh Govinda, oh Krishna, in desperation, calling out. Sometimes we have an experience of that. It is said in the Shastras that by once uttering the holy name of the Lord, the sinner gets rid of a quantity of sins that he is unable to commit. Pretty good. Such is the power of uttering the holy name of the Lord. There is not the least exaggeration in this statement. Actually, the Lord's holy name has such powerful potency. But, Prabhupada says, but there is a quality to such utterances also. It depends on the quality of feeling. A helpless man can feelingly utter the holy name of the Lord. Helpless. We have like a baby. Prabhupada says a baby, we should chant like a baby. What chance does the baby have? He's crying for its mother. The only shelter. He's helpless. That's the meaning. We're not thinking, I can protect myself. I am the doer. I am the enjoyer. I am this. I am that. Whereas a man who utters the same holy name in great material satisfaction cannot be so sincere. A materially puffed up person may utter the holy name of the Lord occasionally, but he is incapable of uttering the name in quality. Therefore, the four principles of material advancement, namely high parentage, good wealth, high education, and attractive beauty, are, so to speak, disqualifications for progress on the path of spiritual advancement. The material covering of the pure spirit soul is an external feature, as much as fever is an external feature of the unhealthy body. The general process is to decrease the degree of the fever and not to aggravate it by maltreatment. Sometimes it is seen that spiritually advanced persons become materially impoverished. This is no discouragement. Sometimes the boys ask that, what's happening? You know, I become so poor or so whatever, destitute, I become sick, and I'm chanting Hare Krishna. But Prabhupada says here, this is no discouragement. On the other hand, such improvement is a good sign as much as the falling of temperature is a good sign. We had a good example of this in France. I'm sure everywhere we see good examples. We have one devotee in France, they've moved to Australia just recently, their family moved. But this young lady, she was 12 years old, she was in her Gurukul in New Varshan in Auckland, in New Zealand, and there was like a pond there next to the Gurukul. And the kids used to go and swim in the pond. And they used to like to jump or dive in the pond. And this little girl, she was 12 years old, she dived in the pond, but she hit a rock. Her head hit a rock at the bottom. And it just completely shattered her nervous system. She's been paralyzed to this very day. That was 20, 12, 30, 20, almost 30 years ago. More than 30, it was 1992. So 31 years ago she had this mishap and she was paralyzed, almost entirely. A little bit of movement only is there, but literally paralyzed. She can't do anything. She needs 1 or 2 helpers to even do anything whatsoever. Only her brain and her head were working normal. She can just move her hand a little bit, kind of like this. That's about it. Her legs don't move at all. And, you know, she's always in ill health. She's still in her body. So this is terrible. It's a horrible story. What's this got to do with it? Well, let's look at it another way. As Prabhupada says here, this is no discouragement. She took it like that. I'll give another example. She took it like that. And all of her Gurukul friends, almost all of them in fact, fell into Maya of some kind or another. But she has never in her life broken the regulated principles once. She's chanted 16 rounds ever since that moment, practically speaking. She gives class, she leaves kirtan in her wheelchair. She goes on Harinam in her wheelchair. She holds books. She can't really do much. She kind of holds them like this and calls people over and talks to them about it and sells books. And she's initiated by Vaisheshika Prabhu, first and second. She's a pure devotee. Simple as that. She's a pure devotee. She's never broken the regulated principles once in her life. She was 12. Yeah. It's like amazing. In one sense it's amazing, on the other side it's terrible. So it depends which way you look at it. What is our purpose in life? And what an example. Now she is also, I won't mention her name, I won't mention them out, but she pretty much paid for the purchase of the Paris temple. She paid for the total renovation of the guest house. She paid for the entire cost of a whole building, and paid for the renovation to convert it into a cafe restaurant in the local city. Now we're talking of millions of euros here. We're not talking of pennies. She paid for that. How is that? Well, yeah, okay, she receives money from the government. She got some small inheritance, but mostly it's by doing what she could do. Now, she couldn't do what a normal person or a normal child could do, but she made an effort to learn something that she could do. She learned how to paint with her mouth. And she is one of the top world painters. She gets huge royalties for painting with her mouth. Many of the cars you buy at Christmas or here and there are pictures painted by such people, and she's one of those. So all the money she's got from that, she's given to Krishna. All of it. So nothing is an impediment. Only our mentality is an impediment. Nothing else. When pride comes in. And she's not at all proud. She doesn't want anyone to know about it. Not at all. She hates it to be advertised. I won't mention her name. But this is a little example. And even a karmi, if you want to use that word, if it's still allowed these days, example, is of a famous person, a very famous person. Of course, he was probably overwhelmed with pride, but he gave a very good example. This man was known as Stephen Hawking, world famous scientist, atheist, great proponent of this so-called material civilization. Rascal number one, call it what you may. But he was diagnosed with MND, motor neuron disease, when he was about 20 years old. The doctors gave him a couple of years to live, probably. It wasn't very advanced understanding in those days. He took it upon himself not to accept that, and he determinedly went about life as if he was going to live forever, as karmis do. And he worked, but of course his health deteriorated rapidly. He got married and everything like that. I don't know much about his family life. But he pursued his expertise, which was in scientific research and analysis, etc. Most famous scientist in the world at one point in time. He became. He couldn't speak, he couldn't do anything on his own. Everything was computerized later in his life. And he made one of his statements, I listened to some of his key statements one time, amongst all the incredible statements, was one statement that stood out. I mean, incredible means unbelievable statements. I mean, he made one statement, he said, very soon, he said, scientific technology is advancing so rapidly we will not need human beings. Pretty far out statement, no? Whoever we are who don't need human beings. Anyway, the statement which was a little bit more positive was that he said, the secret which I share with everyone who's struggling in life is don't waste your time thinking about what you cannot do. Focus on what you can do. That was the secret, he said, of my life. What he could do may not have been very much beneficial to anyone, but at least that example is there. He focused on what he could do. And for devotees also, this has to be considered, trying to do what we can do, not imitating, not getting, proud or envious or whatever it is, but doing what we can do. It can help sometimes, finding that point of life, what we can do. Anyway, that's just some sideline things. I'll finish off the purport and we're finished there. The material covering of the pure soul, we read. The general process to decrease the degree of the fever and not to aggravate it by maltreatment. The general process is to decrease it. This is to be impoverished is not the discouragement. On the other hand, such impoverishment is a good sign as much as the falling of temperature is a good sign. You can take that in different ways, but here Prabhupada says it's a good sign. The principle of life should be to decrease the degree of material intoxication. Not to just decrease the degree of, let's say, items to be used in service of Krishna and to be external. Yudhisthira Maharaj, he wanted to be opulent to show that anyone can become Krishna conscious and how to be Krishna conscious in an opulent position. So it's a matter of our attitude, or as Prabhupada says, our sincerity or purpose. Which leads one, the principle of life should be to decrease the degree of material intoxication, which leads one to be more and more illusioned about the aim of life, more and more self-centered. Grossly illusioned persons are quite unfit for entrance into the kingdom of God. So the real thing that we have to be freed of is this illusion, this false identity, and this idea that I am important, that I am in the center. Our only importance is to the degree that we are surrendered to the important, to the degree that we are instrumental, that we are, submissive, willing instruments for the pleasure of the Lord. Then you can say there is a reason to be, we're proud of the fact that we have this privilege, this opportunity, but otherwise we have to be very careful. We might not end up exactly like Daksha, who ended up with a head of a goat, but if we do, in one sense, yes, it can happen. We can, the next body, God knows what we'll have as our head. And when you're in that position, his case was different, but normally if you have the head of a goat, you behave like a goat, your mentality of a goat. For a devotee, that's not going to be the case, even if you do have a goat's body, as like Bharat Maharaj remembered, even he fell down, etc. So try to be conscious of this, the danger of pride, and lesson to be learned in this pastime of Daksha and Shiva. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oh Premanandi, Hare Krishna. It's time for lunch. You can fast for breakfast, save money. Just keep it for lunch. Sorry about that. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi. So book bags are ready. We're all heading out on the street to Jundelsbrunn for book distribution today. Jundelsbrunn, I don't know how you pronounce it. Maybe you've already done that, I don't know. Probably everyone in Jundelsbrunn is quite familiar with us, I'd imagine. But anyway, somehow or another, let's try to. Nimitta matra bhavya sadhasachina, become an instrument for the Lord's will. Arjuna had a pretty heavy task at hand. Our task isn't quite so severe, but it's even more merciful than that, you could say. Great opportunity. This yajna is joyfully performed, very joyfully performed. Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement is very joyful. It's not just an austere process, it's very joyfully performed. So much pleasure devotees get when they chant and dance together, feast together. It's like in another world altogether. Distribute books on the street, go on Harinam Sankirtan, talk to people about Krishna consciousness. This is Krishna's mercy, the reservoir of pleasure, manifests according to our sincerity. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Prema. Haribol. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Jai. We're heading off now to soon, maybe not now, we have to rest a little bit, but heading off towards Czech Republic. The Rath Yatra tomorrow in Brno. Whoa! Jai. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Akila Prabhu.
You told about this incident, the first book, the first person that you approached, you took a book.
Yeah.
And then nothing, you couldn't distribute anything for the whole week.
Yeah.
So how, and this happens to many, how do you maintain a good spirit? How do you maintain your happiness? Attractive? How can you attract people? How can you stay happy?
Well, I remember that when I'm trying to distribute books in France. Isn't it like that sometimes? You can, I mean, France, I think it was Roger who came, he went to France one time, he started crying. He started crying on the street. He said, almost like this is hopeless. And it's changed now, by the way. But there was a period where, you know, if anyone saw Hare Krishna, it was like, get out, cheats! You know, it was so much aggravation against us, and they all knew we were in karmic clothes, etc. It was not easy. And I wasn't there in that era, but recently, times have changed. New generations have come along. Euro, it's become part of Euro. All sorts of things have happened which have changed the psycho. So anyway, I'm a little bit off the mark here, but that experience, I'm saying, is still there. You go on the street sometimes for like, maybe the whole day. I remember one of our Sanktam, but what was his name? What was his name? Acharya. He's back in India now, but he was with us about 5 years ago. He would sometimes go out on the street and his number of books distributed would be 0. He'd be out for 6 hours, 0 books. I said, how was the day? He said, great day today. Well, really, that's good news. How many books? 0. Great day. I said, what do you mean? Today, I found it so much mercy to constantly take shelter of the holy name and Trinada peace in the Chenaturo peace. Today was a really good day. I took him to England on book distribution, and you know, one time, and he did quite well. And I said, how was the day? He said, not very good. I mean, no books? No. A lot of books went out, but not a very good day. I started thinking I was a doer. I started thinking I was doing well, and so on. In France, he said, it's great. Helps to cut down my false pride, etc., etc. So now things have changed a little bit, as I said. But most of the time people go by, non merci, monsieur, non merci, non merci, non merci, non merci, no mercy, no mercy, no mercy, no mercy. This is France, you know. That's if you're lucky. I mean, they may say something even more crude, something very nasty, but it's going on quite well. So how to maintain that enthusiasm? Well, the only reason I maintain that enthusiasm because of the association of others. It was like, you know, we were all, the whole program, the temple program, let's put it another way. The temple program was so fired up. And, you know, we were constantly hearing someone talking about Srila Prabhupada, you know, and this message and how pleased he was that you were trying to distribute books. And the morning program and the evening program was just so fired up that you were just like, you know, you weren't really, it was like, it was joyful even if no books were going out. We were laughing and, you know, together, and I don't know, we didn't have many books in those days. We didn't have any books to read ourselves at all. There was just like one copy in the temples. Everybody used to attend all the classes. We had 4 or 5 classes every day in the temple, 4 or 5. And that, and plus all day long, whatever service we're doing, and we do a lot of kirtan, and I think a lot of dancing and chanting together, and it was fun. It was just like a big party, and okay, that part of it you could say was, but we didn't know anything else. I mean, we really didn't know that there was anything but trying. Our days, the service was the endeavor itself. It wasn't the result, it was the endeavor to render what we believed at us and swearing at us and throwing bricks through the window at us and different things like that. I was giving class one evening in Bury Place, Bhagavad Gita, and a milk churn came through the window into the temple. Oh, no milk inside. Unfortunately, there was no milk inside. It was an empty one. It would have been maybe good if there was some milk, but there was no milk in it. It came crashing through the window, right into this, and luckily no one got injured, but we had people coming in with knives, trying to attack us and all sorts of things in those days. You kind of got used to the fact that, you're on a mission here. We were wild, we were revolutionary hippies, I guess, and so it was like all part of the, the challenge. It was a challenge. We were up for a challenge, Nowadays, maybe not so much. We don't see it like that. It's not so much the cutting edge. But the youth of the day were really quite challenging mood amongst most of the youth in those days. Down with the society revolution. So we didn't expect that people were going to jump into, please let me have it. But Krishna just gave me that little touch at the beginning. I got a little bit overwhelmed with pride, I think, as well. So Krishna just turned off the tap, immediately. Turned it off. Anyway, c'est la vie. But without the association of devotees, it's not possible to carry on. Not possible. It's a hallucination, Prabhupada. We must have the association of devotees. Thank you. Nice reminder. I don't know if that helps or means anything, but I can only say it was the association of devotees at that time which gave me, and then coupled with Prabhupada's encouragement and his personal example and the preaching of devotees and the mere fact that Krishna was giving you happiness at the same time, even though the results weren't coming from the quantitative point of view. You have a right to perform your duty, but not entitled to enjoy the fruits of the result, We were thinking like that. Just do your duty. Just do it. Krishna will, eventually, and he did. Eventually things took a different direction and books were flying out, Flying out. Within 5 years, the books were just flying out. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai. Is it New Simhachalam? Is that what it's called, or just Simhachalam?
Simhachalam.
Huh?
Simhachalam.
You don't say new. Because most of our projects is New Mayapur, New this, New that. So this is Simhachalam Dham Ki Jai. Have you been to Simhachalam? Have you been there? The one in India, that is. Some of you have been? I've been there. I think twice. Vishakhapatnam, near Vishakhapatnam, there. Up on the hill. Really nice.
Which area?
Huh?
Which area in South India?
It's in Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh.
Okay.
On the coast. Yeah, Prabhupada was there also. I wasn't there then, but I went later. Simhachalam. Yeah, amazing place. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Shri Prahlad Nrsingadev ki jai. All glorious to the assembled devotees. Hari Bol. Jai Nrsinga Jai Jai.